Classic Restos, proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can be part of the Shannons Club. Penrite Oil, Hare and Forbes Machinery House, Pace Farm, and Duncan Foster Engineering. Hello and welcome. Well, here I am at another sensational Carlisle event. I'm Fletch and this is Classic Restos. But before we go any further, cop this. It's thanks to Shannons. Ask about multi-policy discounts and sign up for the Shannons Club. Call 134646 for a quote and see more at shannons.com.au. For oils, coolants, additives and technical assistance, oil right, use Penrite. And Hare and Forbes has the range. Buy online at machineryhouse.com.au. It is an absolute delight to represent the largest car shows in the world. And over these next two big episodes, I have pleasure to bring you this. Welcome to the 2016 Carlisle All GM Nationals, where some of the coolest cars rolled out of Detroit. This is Carlisle Events, and the spotlight, this time within their stable of shows, is GM. Home to a diverse group of General Motors vehicles, from vintage muscle to the modern 5th generation Camaro. This is the place to be each June, organised by year, model and make. General Motors here in the United States has a legacy with deep roots, from the Chevy boys through to America's flagship of the world, Cadillac. All GM makes and shapes gather once a year here at everyone's second home, Carlisle Events. It's time now for the goodies department. Let's check out the options list as to just some of what's on at this year's Carlisle All GM Nationals. And away we go with Building T, and it's a corker. In here you'll see the Hurst Olds display. T is home to some very cool stuff, including two cars that were proposals and were never actually ever released for public purchase. Inside, a special guest, Don Glover, former engineer for Hurst and helped develop the Jaws of Life to help save people's lives. It's 50 years of the Oldsmobile Fouranado and their display. This car was America's first front-wheel drive car since the 1930s Cord was produced. And in T, there is so much more to see. Building Y is the solid lifter showroom. In here, you need a head brace. This represents devices by men wearing white suits holding clipboards back in the day, building asphalt pounding ground breaking vehicles such as the Yenkos, Copos and other super rare GM stuff. There's no bridging pins on computers here. It's just old school cubic capacity making grunt. Moving through now, time for Fred. How you doing, Fred?
Great, Fletch. How are you?
I'm good. I don't know what to say here. This is one of the most stunning cars I've ever seen, and of course, such a rare car. So there's so much to talk about. We could turn this into the Fred half hour without a problem. Tell us, how did you acquire it, and what history you can tell us about this car, Fred?
Well, I bought the car in 2012. I bought it from the guy that owned this car for 42 years. Bought it in 1970. For 16 years, it was his daily driver. So something that was very unusual. He knew it was a different car, but he had no idea how unusual. Parked the car in 1986 and sat for 26 years before I got a hold of it.
Totally restored, no bolt unturned. Underneath looks just as good as it does everywhere else. What's amazing about this car too, representing this year to the 50th anniversary of the Oldsmobile Fouranado, which this is an integral part of. Up front, we've got that 455 front-wheel drive. What a weapon.
Oh, absolutely. 400 horsepower. It's the transmission is number 2 of the W34 option transmission, as well as the motors of the 400 horse W34. So it scoots.
There is so much history here, to the likes of Don Glover, one of the engineers at Hurst. Now, he rode in this car when it was brand new, right, I believe?
He did. He said he was riding up and down Woodward Avenue and doing burnouts, and he's not really talking a whole lot about all the other things they did with it, but he's definitely been in the car. So
455 cubic inches up front wheel drive. How do they drive as a car, Fred? Do they torque steer at all?
no torque steer at all. It has a steering dampener on it, so it compensates a little bit for the torque steer, but it also has a good balance on the torsion bars. So the torsion bars are adjusted differently to compensate for torque steer. So they have an adjustment rod on them that one side is turned in a little bit more than the other to give it a little bit more tension on it to compensate for it.
Inside the interior, absolutely superb.
I do know that it's an original interior. I saved all the seats, the door panels, all the glass is original on the car. Very well preserved car.
Fred, I could talk to you all day. This is an amazing car, an incredible piece of history. And the way that you have restored this original car, it's beyond words. It really is.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. We worked really hard to get it put back the way that it should be.
Fred, thank you once again. And just in ending up too, events manager here for the GM Nationals here at Carlisle for 2016, Tyler Staley. Doesn't he do a wonderful job?
Tyler did an awesome job on this thing. He's been so great to work with, been easy to deal with, getting us in, very accommodating. The facility's great, the grounds are terrific. I'm having a great time.
Good on you.
Fletch, pleasure. Thank you very much.
Nice to catch up with you, Fred. Thank you.
You bet, thanks.
Moving through building T, the list of people that are so synonymous with the brand. We have Don Glover, a former engineer of Hurst. Don, pleased to meet you.
My pleasure, Fletch. I'm glad to be here today.
How does it feel all these years later to turn up here at Carlisle Events with all the accolades and runs on the board that you have?
It's great. It's great to see everyone and to be involved in the Hurst Olds program.
Alrighty, now explain, where did it start? Now, you were an integral part of the beginning of Hurst, right?
That is correct. The main idea of this came from Jack Watson, was known as Doc Watson, and this was back in 1967. What we've done then is turned a 1968 Cutlass S Post Coupe into the prototype of the Hurst Olds. The Cutlass came as a 350, but we pulled the motor out and put a 455 blueprinted Olds motor in it.
Well, how amazing is this? Engineer, Hurst, I mean, can you believe this? 2016, I mean, a lot of us were just little kids where you already had these runs on the board working for General Motors. What an exciting time. And also, too, I guess, showcasing the importance of the stick shift.
That's correct. As you know, Hurst Performance was a forerunner of the stick shift, and that was George's passion to keep it going and have the best that was available and with lifetime guarantee.
Don, did you think, or did you ever have vision that the stick shift would take off the way it did with the Hurst name on it?
Well, following it prior to working for the company, I thought it would, and that's why I followed the company for many years before I was hired.
What's your favourite car? I mean, if you could have an American classic car in your garage at home, he's probably got a few anyway, but what would it be, Don?
It definitely would be a Hurst Olds. In so much it would be a 1968 model because we only built 515. So that's a very collectible unit.
Don, it's been a pleasure meeting up with you. It doesn't get much better than this to turn up at a Carlisle event. There's always someone special that you can talk to, someone that's had such an integral role of getting these muscle cars or luxury cars to where they were through the decades. This is grassroots stuff, and it's been a pleasure, Don.
My pleasure, Fletch, and it's nice meeting you.
Carlisle Events. It certainly is about the cars, the people, and the excitement. You're watching the 2016 Carlisle All GM Nationals, and you're seeing it first on Classic Restos. Back with more right after this.
We've always had a few cars. They're all special. The T-Bird.
Oh, that's mine.
The Combi for when we want to get away. The XR8.
It's going to be a classic.
They're all insured with Shannons,
We've also got Shannons Home and Contents cover.
which helps protect our automotive collectibles, tools and memorabilia in the home and garage. If you're motoring enthusiasts like us, it's got to be.
Shannons.
Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
In 1926, Australia's Penrite Oil Company was established. Almost 90 years of research, development and refining under the harsh Australian conditions has made Penrite Oil what it is today. Precision, performance, reliability and protection. Championship winning products. Trust Penrite.
If you have a restoration project, Hare and Forbes has the tools that you need. Look at these restoration products: shrinker stretchers, dollies, mallets, bead rollers, profile gauges, professional panel restoration kits, and so much more. Now I warn you, enter at your own risk because you will end up buying something. So come along to your Cap City store or browse and buy online at machineryhouse.com.au because Hare and Forbes has the range. Out on the show field here at Carlisle, the 2016 Carlisle All GM Nationals. And we have Eric. How you doing, Eric?
I'm fine. How are you, Fletch?
I'm good. What a stunning car this is. Love stunning cars, love all cars, but this is really something in the paddock here. Something you don't see very much of. A 1976 two-door Cadillac. Mate, where did you find it?
Found it in South Jersey from the original owner. It was the state sale. Found it on eBay. So I'm the second owner. Car's pretty much original. Painted it over the winter, and other than that, it's all original.
Let's start in the trunk. You've got original manuals there. That's really special. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel you should have all those manuals. If you don't have them, get them, because they come in handy if you're working on the car or whatever.
You've also got a display board there as well. This stuff is priceless. This is original stuff that came with the car. You're just one lucky guy for having this.
Absolutely. The owner actually didn't even know he had it.
Eric, as a kid growing up here in the United States, where did the passion come from the big cars? What age were you when you looked at a Cadillac and thought, I'd like to have one of those one day?
I must have been like 16, 17. I've had a couple of GM Mopar cars, and then I started seeing the Cadillacs, seeing all the options they have. I mean, for cars back in the day, having all these options that you still see today is just incredible to me. I've always had a fascination. Since then, I've always had Cadillacs.
Now let's talk about the go-go department up front. Traditionally with our Cadillacs, 390s, 472s. This is a 1976 model. What do you got going on here?
500 engine.
The big...
Yeah, I believe they came out in 73 with the 500, 72, 73, all the way up through 76, and then 1977 they went down to the 425, which was also an excellent engine. But plenty of power here.
Absolutely. The 8.2-litre 500 cubic inch Cadillac, synonymous with the front wheel drive cars with Eldorado too.
Yes, absolutely. I actually own a 73 Eldorado convertible as well. Has the 500 engine in it, front wheel drive. It's just great. It's a powerhouse.
Do you prefer to drive the rear wheel drive car?
I do. I'm partial to the rear wheel drive. It's a different ride than the front wheel drive. Both ride great, but the rear wheel drive is just it's just impeccable.
I mean, by 1976, power was down hugely. I mean, we've got massive cubes here. Power was down. But the thing is this, they're still effortlessly smooth, and it would just pull this thing along all day long.
Absolutely, Fletch. Whether it's the gear ratio or whatever it is, it's still got the power.
These things just glide. Minimal throttle. Just a little bit of throttle and off they go. It's like you're on this cloud almost.
Exactly.
Okay, Eric, now the colour. What is the colour? It's popping here in the sun. It's incredible. We'll talk about the interior next. What's the paint on the outside?
It's called Firethorn Metallic. I guess because of the orangish red, it looks like it's on fire, but that was the name of the paint back then, Firethorn. As well as the interior and the top is also called Firethorn.
And speaking of the top too, half padded roof, and boy, it's really padded. It's beautifully soft. I mean, if that padded roof was the whole way along, you wouldn't hear anything in a rainstorm.
No, not at all. I mean, you don't hear anything now that has insulation, but with that, you wouldn't hear anything at all.
It's just hard to believe these cars were built back in a time where you don't hear road noise. There's no wind around windscreens and A-pillars. They're almost like a perfect seal. And speaking of which, when you step inside the office department here of this Cadillac, this sumptuous interior, it makes you just want to drive from New York to LA. I mean, you could just go right across the United States in comfort. Eric, thank you so much for the chat. Your car stands out here. It's beautiful and worthy on the first episode. We've got 2 big episodes happening, as we always do for Carlisle.
Looking forward to it.
Good on you.
Thank you, Fletch. Nice to meet you.
And what's an old GM Nationals show without a classic Corvette? We got Jim. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing fine, Fletch. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for bringing along this gorgeous car, 1965 Corvette. What can you tell us about it?
Well, I've had it for about 20 years. Did a little bit of work to it. Just rebuilt the engine on it. And
What's
it was fine.
What's it got in it?
It has a 327, but it's built up a little bit more than that. So it's running great.
Yeah, 327 with a few little tweaks, right?
Yeah, there's quite a few little tweaks, yes.
Yeah. So when people say, gee, it goes well, you just go stock.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now, Jim, this shape, how long did this shape hang in there until they actually changed?
It changed in 1968.
How does it drive as a car?
It drives real great. It does a good job as far as running.
Yep. Are you happy that you've got this type of car? Like, I mean,
Yes.
25, 30 years ago, you would have seen these things running around and you probably thought, wow, I would have liked one, but I couldn't get one at the time. Would that be true?
This is true, yes. Back then, couldn't afford one.
Tell us some features about the car that you personally like.
Yeah, I just basically like engine-wise, the way it runs, just a little bit of everything, really.
Bit of style, bit of class.
Yeah, the style, yes, I like that.
The interior's very nice too, totally original.
Yeah, it's original, yes.
How good's that? It's 1965, a 51-year-old interior to look as good as that. I mean, that's a great accolade for the car.
Yes, it is.
Awesome, Jim. Thank you so much for your time. Great to catch up with such a classic Corvette. Thanks for being a part of this great show for 2016.
Thank you, I appreciate this.
Well, here you go. Doesn't get much better than this. A Carlisle event. And you can see it on a Fletch tour.
There is nothing quite like a Fletch tour. Carlisle All Ford Nationals, GM Nationals and Chrysler Nationals await you.
Book a Fletch tour. It's amazing.
We've seen some absolutely amazing cars.
What an event.
Experience Route 66 from Chicago to Vegas or choose the Detroit tour.
I would make it a point to go to Fletch Tours and come to Detroit.
There are 5 Fletch tours. Select the one that suits you best. See FletchTours.com or contact All Things Travel, Lara.
Heron Forbes Machinery House has been family owned and operated for over 85 years, and it's easy to see why. And with a range like this, you cannot go wrong. Planning on welding? Look at these welding tables and clamps. Air compressors and different air tools. Sandblasting cabinets. Through to spray guns. Everyone is welcome at Machinery House, and they're also open Saturday mornings. Their range of machine tools are workshop tested. There are competitive freight rates around Australia, and you can buy online at machineryhouse.com.au. So remember, Hare and Forbes has the range.
Penrite, Australian made, family owned and operated. Make premium quality engine and racing oils, warranty approved coolants, automatic transmission and manual gear oils, a complete range of engine and fuel additives, heavy duty and industrial products for every application. Visit penriteoil.com for more information. Penrite, Australian made for Australian conditions since 1926.
I spend a lot of time out here. The RT Charger's the real deal. An E49. Remember A-Charger? I've always got projects on the go, so Shannon's laid-up cover helps protect my restorations. I'm Mopar through and through. It's a passion Shannon's understands. I wouldn't insure my cars and bikes with anyone else.
Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
Now we're out on the show field, we're in the Impala section. I've spotted this original 1958 Impala, and we've got the owner here. His name is Glen. How you doing, Glen?
Okay, and you, Fletch?
I'm very, very good. Love this car. Now, it had a restoration a little while ago. This is the type of car, it's not a trophy-winning car, but it's all here in its entirety. It's original, and what makes it extra special is being a 1958 Chev, you always wanted one. Tell us about that.
Well, I graduated high school in 1958, and I couldn't afford anything like this. They were about $3,000 back then, and I always wanted one. I didn't get one. I got married and didn't get one. And finally, a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to get one. This is not a perfect car, but I didn't pay $100,000 for it either. And I finally have one. I'm happy with it.
Oh, this poor guy, he's been going through life and he never got one, but he's got one now.
Yep.
Now, what I like about what I do on Classic Restos is the fact that I believe that everybody gets a fair go. It's not about the $100,000 cars all the time. I mean, here we go. We've got a class of car here in the show field, and it means a lot to you. It's a convertible car, 1958. Now, that's the first year of the Impala, correct?
First year of the Impala, and the first year of the 348 engine, too.
Yep. Don't you love it? I mean, is it, what's the colour? Would it be salmon?
It's Rio Red, R-I-O, Rio Red. It was the only real red they had in 58, Rio Red.
How does it make you feel now at this stage of life, and you've got the car, that when you graduated high school, you're driving that now? How does that make you feel?
Makes me feel about 18. I take this to my reunions. In September, every 2 years we have a reunion up here in Monterey City, PA. And I bring the car, and on the front plate it says Class of 1958, because that's when I graduated. And I have a lot of fun with it.
When this car was brand new, the world was a very different place. I mean,
it sure was.
The rock and roll era, the diners, drive-in movies. I mean, the list goes on and on, doesn't it?
It was wonderful. The Luckies were 20 cents a pack. We didn't know we were poisoning ourselves. Beer was like 20 cents a bottle. Those are the days.
What was the price of your gas per gallon back then? Can you remember that, Glenn?
The cheapest I ever bought gas was $16.9. The cheapest I remember my dad buying gas before I was 16 was $13.9 a gallon, 13.9 cents a gallon. I bought gas at 16.9 cents a gallon.
Do the math and work that out. Glenn, thank you so much for being on the show. I love the Chev. It's one of those cars that whatever angle you look at, you see an embellishment. There's a bit of die cast, there's a bit of stainless, there's some chrome, and of course there's lots of shape. And that just goes hand in hand with cars from this era.
Yeah, 58 was pretty much the year that the chrome fell on the GM cars. Every GM car was just super late. Whenever they put chrome, they put it. Yeah. They just had them super chromed up. Yep.
Yeah, they started becoming on top of their game then, didn't they?
They did, yep.
Yeah. Okay, Glenn, thank you very much. Lovely talking to you.
Nice talking to you, Fletch.
Here we are in Building Y. And why is it Building Y? Because it's wifey, yes. Because when you walk in here, the stuff is amazing. We've got George. How you doing, George?
Excellent, Fletch. How you doing today?
Good. Brand new 1968 Camaro back here.
Yenko Camaro.
Yeah, you got it when it was brand new.
Brand new, right to showroom floor. Laid down $5,052 and brought her home.
Was that, as a young guy back then, that must have been a lot of money for you?
It was, very much.
Did you think, oh, should I or shouldn't I?
Yes, but one reason. We did a lot of street racing, and this was the car to have.
See, you can't say that on TV these days in these times, but back then it was just something you guys did, right?
Yeah, every night. Yeah. Yep. We used to carry slicks in the back seat, jack them up in the groceries parking lot, bolt the tires on, and go racing on the street.
The engineers of the manufacturers did it, so yep. we can't knock these guys.
That's
now,
right.
It's a very special car too. George, you had your honeymoon in this car with your wife Carol, right?
Yes, we bought the car in mid-June. In July, we went to Niagara Falls in the car on our honeymoon, toured through Canada, went to Seaside Heights, and then we ended up at Cecil County Dragway and did some drag racing on our honeymoon.
And you two guys still hanging out today. How nice is that?
You can't beat it, I'll tell you what.
Wow.
Without her, I couldn't do this.
Talk about a perfect match, and also with the car as well. Now, you've got early photos there in an album of when you used to race the car. Yes. I mean, you've got a lot of legacy, a lot of history here.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, we had the car. We had a lot of great memories. As of all, you get some bad memories, too. Blowing rear ends up and exploding engines and that kind of good stuff,
Hey, George, if that's the worst that happened to you, buddy, that's not too bad.
That's right. We're still here to talk about it. That's the main thing.
Now, tell us about the car. What powers it up front and anything special about the car? I know, and you can tell by looking right, it has had a full restoration.
Full restoration, yes.
Tell us about the engine.
It's a 427. Back then, they rated at 450 horsepower. The motor was put in by Yenko Chevrolet, not by General Motors. It was a 396 car originally. In 1968, Yenko transplanted a bigger motor in these cars, and that's why they're called Yenkos.
If you are watching and you're not too sure about the relevance of Yenko, it's kind of like Yenko was the almost like the Carroll Shelby of what he did with the Fords, right?
Exactly. He was a road racer, and he started, racing Corvairs, and then when big block Chevys come out, of course, he started in 1967, and started retrofitting the cars with bigger engines, and.
So the cars left to the factory, they went to the dealerships, and then if you had a bit more extra coin, you could send them to Yenko.
Exactly. For a couple more $1,000, he did a heart transplant and a few other items, and there you had it,
What's your thoughts on this year's event here, 2016 at Carlisle, George?
Oh, it's a great event. As usual, Carlisle puts on, multi events every year. Yep. And this is one of the premier events. Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. And you can't complain with the garage that you're in this year. You've got some prime real estate going on right here.
Can't beat it. You got to stay out of the sun. Yesterday we stayed out of the rain.
Yep. What was that feeling like the day that you drove it away from the dealership? Can you remember? Can you describe that to us?
Yeah, like a kid in a candy store. It was great. I mean, I knew at that point that we had one of the best cars in the area. And we drag raced it for years, like on the strip and on the street. And on the street, we've never been beaten. Hemi Road Runners and you name it. We blew the doors off them. We always ran the left lane. She called the numbers.
Wow. The day that you got the car, were you taking it around to your buddies' houses and were you showing it off, or did you just drive it straight home?
Wouldn't you show it off?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, we made the rounds, of course. Yes, and actually, the state police arrested me a week before my honeymoon, driving too fast. I wonder why.
They just never had a sense of humor on that day, did they?
Couldn't take a joke.
Did they let you off at all?
I got off scot-free. They said the speedometer was out of calibration, and I told the judge, "Would you buy a brand new car, and wouldn't you expect the speedometer to be correct?"
Yeah.
And I got off scot-free.
Yeah, just an unreliable GM Speedo, right?
That's right.
Yeah. George, it's been wonderful catching up with you. Thank you so much. It's been a real privilege to be on this episode of Classic Restos here in Carlisle. A great guy and a great car.
Okay, thank you, Fletch.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good day. Thank you.
When it comes to GM, nothing anywhere in the world comes close to the Carlisle GM Nationals. And you've seen part 1 on Classic Restos. 3 big days of GM products, from muscle to luxury and all things in between. The Carlisle GM Nationals depicts the rolling time capsule that takes us all back to a time that will never repeat, but we can enjoy these classics today. And part 2 of the 2016 Carlisle All GM Nationals will be seen on next week's episode of Classic Restos. And until next week, no matter where you're watching the show from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching. You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Classic Restos TV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos, proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can be part of the Shannons Club. Penrite Oil, Hare and Forbes Machinery House, Pace Farm, and Duncan Foster Engineering.